Okay, chapter 1 talks about real numbers. In lesson 1, there are 10 lessons in this unit, or in this chapter, and lesson 1 is rational numbers. So you remember we talked about rational numbers and irrational numbers. And rational numbers are numbers that can be written as a composition of two integers. So you can put two integers, or they can also be expressed as a fraction. So if you can write it as a fraction, then it's called a rational number. We talked about repeating decimals. So repeating decimals would be something that, like the 3 here, repeats forever. So it has a dot, 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 and the 3 would go on forever. So this is a repeating decimal. This one, though, it stops because you have a 0, and the 0 is what repeats. So the terminating decimals or stopping decimals, on this one, the fraction 2/5, when we divide 2 by 5, we would get 0.4 for the fraction, and 1 divided by 2 would give us 0.5. These are both terminating decimals. This one is called a repeating decimal because 5 divided by 6 will keep repeating the 3 forever. Okay, so if we look at all of the examples and do the got it questions, hopefully we can figure out how to do this lesson. But you're allowed to use your calculators now, so we're hoping that the ministry doesn't change that last minute or anything like that. So in the calculator, I would put 9 divided by 16 to turn this into a decimal. On this one, I would push the button that looks like a whole number and then a fraction. I would type this right into the calculator and I would press equals. And then I would have to change it to a decimal. So I would press the button that says fraction decimal, and I'll show you how to do that in the classroom if you still have questions. Same thing on this one. This one will be a repeating decimal. So when we actually write the answer to this one, we're going to put a 3 with a bar over it. So on number 1, when we use the calculator, we would get 0.5625. On number 2, we would get negative 1.725. And number 3 is repeating. So we would write it 4.83 with a bar over the 3 to signify that we need to repeat the 3 forever. Okay, number 4 is a word problem also. She won 7 out of 16 total. So when we write that as a fraction, she won 7 out of a total of 16. We would again use the calculator. It says to round to the nearest thousandth. So when we round to the nearest thousandth, that means we want 3 decimal places. And when we put this one in the calculator, what we're going to get is 0.4375. Okay, so when we want 3 decimal places, we have to look at the decimal place to the right. And if this number is 5 or bigger, then this one needs to go up 1. If this number is less than 5, we would keep this as 7. But since this is 5, we would actually move this up to an 8. So your answer on that one would be 0.438, rounded to the nearest thousandth. If they say to the nearest hundredth, this is 2 decimal places. So we would have a number and a number. And then to the nearest tenth is 1 decimal place. Okay, numbers 5 and 6 have decimals, and they told us to change it to mixed numbers or fractions. So this one is very easy. We can put it in the calculator and push the button that changes from fraction to calculator, and it would give us 8/25. Number 6 is difficult though because we can't just put a repeating decimal in the calculator. So what we're going to have to do is pretend that we're giving a variable to the value that they gave us. So we want to change this. It keeps going forever, the 7. We want to change this into a fraction. So we're going to assign this a variable. It's n. And then, because there's 1 decimal that repeats, so it keeps going 777, we would multiply by 10 because there's 1 0 in 10. If there's 2 that repeat, for example, up here, the 1/8 is what is repeating, and there's 2 decimals there that repeat. So if I were to write this, it would have a bar over the 2 decimals. Then we would put multiplied by 100 because there's 2 decimals and we want 2 zeros. So this one only has 1 decimal, so we would put multiplied by 10. and multiplied by 10. So n multiplied by 10 is 10n. This multiplied by 10, it would move the decimal place over 1. So we would get negative 7.77. Excuse me. Then we're going to subtract 1n. So we're going to subtract 1n here, and because n is equal to this, we're going to subtract that on this side. After we've done that, what we'll get is 9n equals negative 7 if we do that in the calculator. This subtracted by this, negative, we would get negative 7. To solve the equation then, we would have to divide by 9 to cancel these 9's out. So our n would be equal to negative 7 over 9. So this decimal as a fraction would be negative 7 over 9. And that's all for this first lesson.